Hey folks, Dave Brown here with the New Populist. Thank you again for joining me. Over the last 15 years, we have seen an explosion in race politics. I'm sure you're aware of this. This starting with Barack Obama back in 2008. That's when it really just started to explode. And for someone like myself who grew up in the 90s, race wasn't a huge deal. We were getting better, a lot better since the 60s, going in the right trajectory. And then Obama gets elected, the first black president. No, it wasn't Bill Clinton. Um, we all sort of thought, okay, well, this means we finally reached a pinnacle. We have put race issues relatively, for most part, behind us. Yet instead, they actually got much, much worse. And for those of you wondering why, we have to understand the left and how they view society. Now, we've had this rise of critical race theory, which actually comes from the 70s. And if you understand critical race theory, you would know, and this is what people miss who don't understand what it is. It's not about teaching history. They say, the people who came up with it, that they want to fundamentally change this country because they believe a society that is built off of European ideals is in itself a form of white supremacy. So if you believe in a colorblind society, um, you believe in a colorblind judiciary, that actually supports white supremacy. So you see the problem here. How do you then have a society that is not a white supremacist society? Well, radical transformation. That's what they want, and that's what they're pushing. And because they're pushing this, they have to account for things that don't, go along with their ideas. That being black people and people of different colors um, supporting what they call white supremacy. So, what do you do when you have black white supremacists? And how do you explain this away? Well, there's an article in Al Jazeera that I saw that was pretty funny, called "Why White Supremacists Are Not Always White." Now, I want to go through this article and point out some of the absurdities, but I want you to better understand their thought process. And actually, I'll make the argument that your very progressive liberals, your white liberals, I think are actually the biggest racists today if you actually understand what they're saying. So let's go through this article now. Again, I'll point out some of the absurdities when they pop up. And it starts off: in the early hours that followed yet another mass shooting in the United States, this time targeting an outlet mall in Allen, Texas, rumors and speculation spread about the shooter's identity and motives. Two competing narratives arose: one of the shooter as a white supremacist, representing another violent racist attack, the other of a Hispanic gunman feeding into fears about immigration and violence. As more information emerged about the gunman, eventually identified as a 33-year-old former U.S. Army recruit named Mauricio Garcia. Now, they say former recruit. Makes me wonder if he went to the Army and they kicked him out for being a whack job or something like that. So that's kind of suspicious. The two narratives merged. The shooter, while not an illegal immigrant, was indeed Hispanic. He was also a vocal white supremacist who reveled in neo-Nazi paraphernalia and posted messages online about a coming race war. The revelation of a Latino neo-Nazi elicited a host of reactions, from anger to confusion to incredulity. Now, one thing we have to be careful of, and I point this out when it comes to serial killers, spree shooters, anybody. Sometimes you just have whack jobs, and whatever they cling to as being something to motivate them really shouldn't have all the blame, because a whack job can really latch onto anything to use as an excuse to go out and kill people. So I try not to assign too much, credit or look at what they were saying with that much of a, like, take it that seriously. You got people out there who are just flat out nuts, and there's no way to, that's what they are, whatever they say. And that's the same thing with serial killers, for example. People always want to get into the mind of a serial killer. And I'm going, who cares? Take him out back and shoot him. Keep on moving. We don't need to break down the mind of Jack the Ripper or whoever it might be. I don't particularly care. They're waste of human space, and they need to be eliminated from humanity, and do it quickly. The article goes on. The mix of anger and disbelief was recently repeated when 19-year-old Sai Vershith Kandula was arrested after crashing a U-Haul van into a barrier near the White House while carrying a Nazi flag. Kandula, an Indian American man from Missouri, later discussed with authorities his plan to attack President Biden and his admiration for Hitler. Add to these incidents a variety of cases that range from Enrique Torrio, the Afro-Cuban American leader of the Proud Boys, to the Nazi propaganda of the artist formerly known as Kanye West, all point to a real and potentially growing phenomenon. White supremacy is not only perpetrated by white people. Now, Kanye West, whack job. Don't care what he says. Don't give him, pay too close attention to his or what we know what he's talking about. Just a crazy person. Same thing with this guy from Missouri. He rented a U-Haul truck and tried to crash into the White House. We have to actually go through his ideology and go, oh, this guy, who cares? He's a nut job. And the funny thing is that they actually dropped some of the major charges for this guy, which is kind of suspicious. So I can only speculate as to why they did that. And they threw in the guy from the Proud Boys, Enrique Torrio. They want to describe the Proud Boys as being white supremacists, but if you actually look at what they say, they're not at all white supremacists. And this again is where they're trying to associate people who push Western values as being people who push white supremacy, and that's what they're trying to do. More important than debating whether or not this phenomenon of black and brown and white supremacists is real, it is, despite efforts in conservative circles to paint it as false or ridiculous, is understanding how it has emerged. White supremacy, perpetuated by non-whites, has several related roots, some of which are as old as inequality and oppression in America, and some which have materialized more recently through modern technology and entertainment. First, there's the idea, rarely articulated but often observable, that certain non-white people who espouse white supremacist ideologies will benefit by virtue of their proximity to the privileges and power that come with whiteness in America. NYU professor Christina Beltran has coined the term multiracial whiteness to describe people like Tario, who appear to seek to identify with whiteness not as a racial construct, but as an ideology of power and supremacy. So, if you're a person of color like myself, I can, embrace whiteness or identify with whiteness. So what exactly does that mean to identify with whiteness? Now, that's an interesting thing to say. Well, first, let's go back to Tario. He calls himself, as you see in this picture here, a Western chauvinist. What does that mean? He says the West, our European culture, or a culture that came from European values, is what he embraces. Now, that apparently, to these progressive types, is embracing whiteness and white supremacy. See how this works? So when they say they want to eradicate or change our society in the United States. That's what they're saying. They want to, in a sense, destroy our European our heritage and our culture and replace it with something else. Now, remember that there was that poster that was posted on the website for the African American Museum. It got a lot of attention because it was so ridiculous. Well, they actually describe it here on this poster, what they say about white or black people who want to embrace or embrace European culture. Here's what they say on this poster. White dominant culture or whiteness refers to the way white people and their traditions, attitudes, and ways of life have been normalized over time and are now considered standard practices in the United States. And since white people still hold most of institutional power in America, we have all internalized some aspects of white culture, including people of color. Now, since white people still hold most of institutional power in America, that goes back to the critical race theory thing where these institutions, if they came from white people and they're still here, well, that furthers white supremacy and they must be destroyed. And it says that if you're a person of color and you're an American, then you have internalized aspects of white culture. Now, what is white culture that this person is talking about on this poster here? What are aspects of white culture that I have internalized by being here in the United States as a person of color? Rugged individualism. So if you believe in taking care of yourself, being self-reliant, that's an aspect of white culture. The nuclear family. If you have a mom and a dad and kids, and you live in a house, well, that's more white culture. The emphasis on scientific method, objective, rational, linear thinking. That's more white culture. Protestant work ethic. Hard work is the key to success. More white culture. Now, let me ask you this. If those are white culture, what is the opposite of that? So, what is the opposite of individualism? Collectivism. What is the opposite of having a nuclear family? Well, we see in the Black community single motherhood. How's that working out? Objective, rational, linear thinking. What's the opposite of that? Irrationality and chaos. I mean, and hard work being the key to success. So that's white. Is being lazy a black thing? So it's funny how this poster here, which was written by a elderly white woman, identifies all of these things with whiteness that are great things to have in a society if you want to build a functioning society. And it's almost implying that people of color, black people, don't embrace these things. And first of all, is that even true? Are you telling me that having a nuclear family is just a white thing, that Asians don't have that in China, or that black people don't have that in Nigeria? Why is it just a white thing? So remember I said before how it seems that progressives are more racist toward black people than quote unquote white supremacists. This is why. They look at black people like we should be in Africa wearing some garb chasing lions and tigers. Like, what? We are born in America and we are born in this culture, and it's not just for white people. Black people embrace some of these similar things. And what's the alternative here? What am I supposed to do as a black person here in 2023? I'm supposed to learn some African dialect again, throw on some sandals, and live in a commune in a hut somewhere. So where black people were 400 years ago is irrelevant to where we are now. And those societies in Africa have actually evolved too. If you go to Nigeria, for example, they have cities and cars and apartment buildings and nuclear families. People work hard. So the idea that these white liberals attach all of these great things that you would want in a society for as far as individuals to being white. I would argue that is much more racist than anything you hear from white supremacists. Continuing the article, again, this is the person who wrote this thing here. I would suggest her name is Judy Katz. Um, Maybe she's a real racist. But to finish this article, while the age of ironic internet bigotry may have peaked, it may be too late to reverse its impact as racism, misogyny, homophobia, and other forms of hate have come out of the shadows and found allies in mainstream media and politics. And this mainstream acceptance will continue to make ideologies like white supremacy attractive to disaffected individuals in our culture, even some who belong to the very groups that the white nationalists seek to oppress or exclude from American society. Recognizing how white supremacists have broadened their recruitment tactics and expanded their ideological appeal is a necessary step to combating these ever dangerous and disturbingly expansive hate movements. So, white supremacists, they have broadened their recruiting tactics to, I guess, include people of color. What kind of defeats the purpose? But I guess what they're going to claim is that white supremacists, they can recruit blacks and Asians and people of Indian descent, and they can, as long as those people are embracing Western ideals, Western culture, then that's okay with them, and it's helping to perpetuate white supremacy. So again, if you're a person who's Asian, you come here from China, you're a person who family came from India. If you like the values of the United States, hard work, individualism, Second Amendment rights, you are supporting white supremacy. How ridiculous is that? And I think one of the political things that the left is worried about, if you get past their ideological nonsense, is that black people vote Democrat 90 to 10, right? 9-1. If black people ever just sort of snapped out of this haze of just following the Democrat Party and actually looked at what the Democrat Party was giving to them, these ideas that they shouldn't embrace hard work or having a nuclear family is somehow being white. If they understood what they were being sold from these people who support critical race theory, these neo-Marxists, these materialists, these progressives, they were snapped out of it. It would be, from an electoral standpoint, absolutely would crush the Democrats. If blacks were, say, 75-25, Democrats would lose. 80-20 would be enough. Democrats would lose in these states, these swing states like Pennsylvania and Michigan and Wisconsin. So as more and more people of color embrace these ideas that are, quote, a white supremacist, they desperately need to explain it away and somehow attach black people who support the Proud Boys or an Indian guy or guy Latino. They got to somehow find a way to blame white people and white supremacy. They don't want people to look too carefully and go, wait a second. They just supporting these European civilization and the European values is somehow evil. If that's the understanding, I don't think most people, black people, for example, even realize this is what white people or white liberals are trying to say to them, and the depths of it. And if they realize how ridiculous it is, and they rebelled, oh boy, huge trouble for the Democrat Party in the future. And that's why I have this channel here. I want to tell people who are, black people, Asians, Latinos, this is what you're being sold. They want a transformed America where we go away from having logic and structure, rational thinking, the scientific method, the linear thinking, to something else. And I wonder what that is. I'm thinking about what that could be. And you know what? I don't want to find out. I think it's going to be chaos. It's going to destroy this country. And the last thing, too, by the way, embracing European culture. I am half white. Is that something I'm supposed to ignore? My European heritage and my English ancestors? So they never really explain what to do when you're biracial. Of course, they'll say, "Well, you're any you're any bit of brown in your skin, you're just black." But again, I'm part European. Is that not part of my heritage? Being part European and having a good work ethic, or I'm always supposed to focus on where my black relatives came from 400 years ago or 500 years ago in Africa, somewhere in modern day Nigeria? That's the only thing I'm supposed to look at. Gotta ignore everything else. The Jewish side, German Jewish side, the English side. Well, forget about that. Their culture. You don't embrace that. Get your your sandals on and your colorful dashiki. Embrace some black culture, Dave. Because if you embrace the European culture here in the United States, you are helping to further white supremacy. Awesome. So I will not be embracing black culture in the United States. I'll embrace the American culture. And the American culture is for everybody, and it's good for everybody. Look around. A lot of people coming here. Why are they coming here from all across the world? For the American culture, which, yes, is rooted in European society and values. And that's okay. Nothing wrong with that. Well, that's it for now. If you are new to my channel, please like and subscribe. I'll see you next time.